Yes, good evening, everybody. Tonight we'll be discussing a topic that is also very important, a topic that is very simple if you understand what it entails. And the topic is limiting factor analysis. Limiting factor analysis. Now, I want you to first reason, meditate on this topic, on the title limiting factor analysis. Limiting factor analysis, from the word limit. Limit. Now, this topic, limiting factor analysis, is centered around factors of production. That factors of production in most instances can be limited in supply. And when factors of production are limited in supply, there is a need for us to ration the limited resources in order to get the best possible results from the limited resources. So, limiting factor is any factor that restricts the level of production or sales in an organization. Yes, you are trying to produce more. There is opportunity for you to sell more, but there is a limitation to your capacity. And examples of such limitation in an organization can be limited raw materials. You have more demands coming your way, but there is no raw material to satisfy those demands. In that case, the limiting factor can be termed as raw materials. In another instance, it can be labor hours. You have shortage of manpower. To meet up with the expected labor hour required to produce a product. Where that is the case, labor hour can be termed to be the limiting factor. It can also be in terms of machine hours. It can be in terms of capital. It can be in terms of limited market demand. So when one or more of these resources are in short supply, an organization or the management of an organization must decide how best to use the resources. So why do we have to analyze or talk about limiting factor? It is very clear that in economics that human wants are unlimited, but the means to satisfy them are what? Are limited. And what are those means to satisfy them? Is the availability of the resources. So there is need for rationing. And how do you ration? You ask yourself, if I want to ration, you have limited money in your hands and you want to buy certain products for your own personal use, you have to do a scale of preference, which will give me the best satisfaction among the arrays of needs that I want, which will satisfy me best. It means you try to meet up with that demand first before you proceed to buying other ones. So also, in an organization, the purpose of limiting factor analysis is to allocate scarce resources to the products that generate the highest contribution per unit. Take note of this statement. Once you identify a limiting factor, the next thing to do is to determine the contribution per limiting factor. What will be the contribution that limited resources will offer, can generate, will give to the organization? So the product with the highest contribution will be the products you allocate more resources to. So you do that based on ranking. So the objective of limiting factor is to allocate scarce resources to the product that generate the highest contribution per unit of the limiting factor. So why are we allocating these resources in that way? Is to maximize total contribution. To maximize total contribution. Now, the key concept or the key principle in limiting factor analysis is for us to rank based on contribution per unit of the limiting factor. In order not to bore us too much, based on the slide, I explained what limiting factor is all about and examples of limiting factors such as labor, materials, the capacity of the organization can be a limiting factor, and so on and so forth. So, for you to solve limiting factor question, there are steps you must follow. And once you follow these steps, you'll be fine. Now, before I show my steps in the slide, let me just say some of the steps. Number one thing you must do once you're trying to solve a limiting factor question is for you to identify the limiting. The examiner can be very trickish when it comes to these aspects, which is the first thing you have to do. Now, some questions will make it open for you to identify the limiting factor with ease. Some questions we want you to test if there is actually limiting factor in the question before you can come to a judgment that this is the limiting factor. But when you see question and the question is saying that the maximum available material is this, it shows that the limiting factor of material is the amount stated in the question. It means you cannot go beyond that value that has been stated in the question. If the question states that the maximum available hour is 20,000 hours, it shows that no matter what you do, you cannot have access to 21,000 hours, cannot have access to 22,000 hours. The limit you can go is what? 20,000 hours. So where question is telling you that the maximum is this, the available hour is this, the available material is this, these are ways you begin to know that this is likely to be the limiting factor. So once you identify the limiting factor, what do? You determine what? You compute your contribution. Now take note, there are two steps of contribution. Take note. The normal contribution we do compute, which is selling price less variable cost, or contribution equal to profit plus fixed cost. That is constant. Once you determine your contribution per unit, take note, that is contribution per unit of each product. The next step of contribution is for you to divide your contribution per unit by the limiting factor usage per unit. That means, or that is called contribution per limiting factor. Let me show you so that this grammar will not be too much. Now, steps to solve single limiting factor questions. Now, I said single limiting factor because some organization can be faced with more than one limiting factor. When an organization is faced with more than one limiting factor, you use what we call linear programming to solve such questions. You use linear programming to solve such questions. But where it is just a single limitation, you use this normal approach that we will be showing. So steps to solve single limiting factor question. Number one, identify the limiting factor by calculating the amount required of the key resources. The amount required of the key resources. Now, how do you do that? For example, in a question, Let's assume you have a demand and the required quantity of material to satisfy that demand is, let's say, 5,000 kg for product A and 3,000 kg for product B. But what you have access to is 2,000 for product A. What you have access to for product B is 6,000. So for you to know if there is limitation, what will you do? The difference between what is required and what is available will tell you if there is limitation, that is shortfall or excess. Now, for A, you need 5,000 kg of material, but you have 2,000 kg. Is there limitation here?
Yes.
There is limitation. So it shows that material is a limiting factor for product B. Now, for product A, for product B, you are in need of 3,000 kg, but what you have is 6,000 kg. Is there limitation here?
No.
No.
No limitation. So take note. Some question will require you to show these steps. Some question will just make it clear to you. You'll be able to infer from the interpretation of the statement that this is clearly the limiting factor without showing these steps. But some question will want to test your understanding, where you are now doubting, am I having two limiting factor or just a single limiting factor? You might need these steps, this number one step. So identify the limiting factor by calculating the amount required of the key resources. Step two, calculate the contribution per unit for each product. How do you compute contribution per unit? It is your selling price less what? Variable cost. You must be able to identify, what are my variable costs? Direct material is a variable cost. Direct labor is a variable cost. Variable production overhead is also a variable item. Take note. Take note of that. Where the question did not define it as variable, where the question is silent as just overhead, and there is no any additional information, take note. This overhead can also be fixed. Can also be fixed. When we are doing budgeting, we will see what we call cost separation, whereby a particular item of cost can have the elements of fixed and variable, and you use the high-low method to separate that. So take notes. Some questions will just be silent and tell you overhead. So you must be very careful to determine, is it variable or fixed. So, but in this case, calculate the contribution per unit of each product. Selling price less variable cost. We give you what? Contribution per unit. Take note, contribution per unit. Contribution per unit will lead you to the computation of contribution per limiting factor. Contribution per limiting factor. Take note, there are two steps of contribution. One is contribution per unit, one is contribution per limiting factor. But you need this contribution per unit to determine the contribution per limiting factor. How do you determine your contribution per limiting factor? Step 3. Calculate the contribution per limiting factor in the following order. The contribution per unit you derive in step 2, divide by unit of the limiting factor. Unit, take note. What do we mean by unit? One. One. So you convert the limiting factor. If you have the limiting factor as a whole, you get a unit of it. Then you divide your contribution per unit by the unit of the limiting factor. Unit of the limiting factor. Now, once you do that, the next step is for you to rank which product is giving you the highest contribution, which product is giving you the least contribution. So you rank in descending order. That is from highest to lowest. From highest to lowest. Why are you ranking? You are ranking for you to allocate the limited resources to the products that will give you the highest contribution. So as you begin to allocate your resources to those products, you give more, you satisfy the highest ranking products by producing everything because it will give you the highest contribution. So if you don't have sufficient resources to meet up with other products, that is fine. It means you will not produce them because the resources will not be sufficient to meet up with their demand. So once you do the ranking, what next? Check if the organization is giving priority to any product. Now, what do we mean by this? Some organizations have special customers that no matter how scarce the resources are, they must meet their need, they must meet their demand. So when solving limiting factor questions, you must check, do we have any statement that states that there is a special customer or there is a special order? That special order, that special customer, you need to satisfy them first before considering your normal production. So even if there is limitation in the resources, you must meet up with the need of your special customer. Why? For continuous patronage, for you to keep the relationship with them. So your special customer will not want to hear that you cannot meet or satisfy his or her need. So they need you to always meet up with their need. So limitation of resources will not affect them because there is a question like that. Kikelomo Nigeria Limited, one of the questions in the Pathfinder that test our understanding of special order And there's another question from the ACCA pack that I will also solve with us that test our understanding on special order. So when you come to that point, let the understanding come that special order will not be affected by limitation of resources. So check if the organization is giving priority to any product. Calculate the amount of key resources that is allocated to the product prioritized. So the resources allocated to the product prioritized will be deducted from the overall available resources. What is left will be what you will spread across your normal production. Will be what you will spread across your normal production. So once you do that, step 6, that is where we have special order. Step 6, what will happen? You allocate the available limited resources on the basis of their priority. So the resource you have, let's assume you have 20,000 as the available raw material and product A is ranking first and product A needs overall 10,000 kg of the material. What will you have left? If you use 10,000 out of 20,000, you have a balance of what? Of 10,000.
10,000.
Now, if product B is ranking second and the total raw material you need to produce product B is 8,000, the balance will now be what?
2,000.
2,000.
2,000.
2,000. Now, let's now assume product C needs 4,000 raw material. But what you have now is what? 2,000.
2,000.
2,000.
What will you do?
The
You
limiting
cannot,
factor is 2.
2,000.
yes, you cannot do anything. You still have to use this 2,000.
Yes.
But the number of products you will produce will be based on what? These 2,000.
1,000.
Will be based on these 2,000. So at the end, 2,000 minus 2,000, it shows you have 0.
0, yes, sir.
So take note, The product mix or optimum output is the best you can produce given the available resources. So what the best unit or quantity you can produce will come as your optimum output, as your optimum output. The best you can produce given these resources will come as your optimum output. The best you can produce using this resource will come as the optimum output. Is this clear? Before we pick an example, we'll start with this very simple example. Then we'll now move to more complex one. So any question at this point? Any question? All right. So let's proceed. Let's just pick a question. This is a very simple question. I like starting with this question. Yes, if you've watched my YouTube channel, you would have seen me explain this. Yes. For those of you doing FM, yes, you can access my YouTube page to start going through the theoretical part of financial management. This diet, I'm not starting from the scratch, from the beginning of the syllabus. Last diet, I pick it from the beginning. I was moving like that. So this diet, I decided to change the pattern. So in case you're only having FM to write or FM and PM, and you have time, you can visit the channel to see the class discussion for last diet. For last diet. So can somebody read this question?
Okay, illustration 1. Amaco PLC produces. Eh, I'm not seeing this one. Let me zoom out. Sorry. Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Illustration 1. Amaco PLC produces armored hosting for use in the construction industry. The hose is wrapped in copper wire. The company has two products, 12 hose and 30 hose. Okay, 12 hose sells for 10 naira per meter and 30 hose sells for 25 per meter. Number 2, 12 hose uses 1 kg of tungsten wire per meter and 30 hose use 6 kg per meter. Variable costs are 8 naira per meter for 12 hose and 19 per meter for 30 hose. There are no limits on the demand for either size of hose. Suppliers of tungsten wire are restricted to 600 kg per week. Recommend the most profitable short-term production plan for Amaco PLC.
All right, thank you very much. So I would like to ask question based on the steps. The first step to solve this is for us to determine what? What is the first step?
To identify the limiting factor.
Fine. So looking at this question, what is the limiting factor that you can identify?
So the question says there is no limit on the demand for either size of the hose.
Yes.
There's a limiting factor for supplies.
600 kg of tungsten wire is the limiting factor.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes.
Supply.
Yes. Let's see.
Limiting factor is 600 kg, sir.
Okay. Supply of tungsten wire is, see the word, restricted. restricted. It means even when you have demand that you need more tungsten wire within a week, you cannot go beyond what? 600 kg. That is a limiting factor. So another limiting factor that can surface is demand, but it is very clearly put that there is no limit on the demand. You know why demand can be a limiting factor? There can be a restriction within an industry that no matter what you do, you cannot supply or sell beyond certain amount of barrel. Let's use oil now. Yes, in a day, Nigeria cannot sell more than maybe 100,000 barrels. So that is a limit, even when you have opportunity. So that is how demand can be a limitation. Yes. So even when you have customers coming, but because there is a limit to what you can sell in a day, in a week, you cannot go beyond that. So in some questions, you see demand will be a limitation, even when you have excess supply. But demand is limited. So in this question now, tungsten wire is what? Is the limiting factor. Is the limiting factor. Since you've identified the limiting factor, what will be the next thing? Yeah, what will be the
Calculation
next?
of contribution per unit.
Calculation of contribution per unit.
Contribution per unit.
Fine. Contribution per unit.
Per unit.
Now you have two products, right?
Yes, sir.
Two products. One is 12 mm hose and 30 mm hose. Now, for you to get the contribution per unit or per meter for 12 mm hose, what will you do?
So the selling price minus
Selling
variable cost.
price minus variable cost.
So the selling price for 12 mm hose is what?
10 naira.
And the variable cost is what?
8 naira.
So 10 minus 8 will give you what?
2 naira.
That
2
is the
naira.
contribution for 12 mm hose. And for 30 mm hose, your selling price is what?
25 naira.
25.
And the variable cost is what?
19 naira.
19 naira.
So the difference between 25 and 19 will give you what?
6
6
naira.
naira.
6 naira.
That is your contribution per unit
Per
or per
unit.
meter. So what will now be the next step?
Contribution.
Calculation of contribution per
Calculation of
limiting factor.
Fine. Contribution per limiting factor. What do you need to
yes.
calculate your contribution per limiting factor?
Contribution per unit divided by limiting factor. Unit of unit. Limit factor.
Very good. Unit of limiting factor. Now, what is the unit of tungsten wire?
2
The unit of tungsten wire you need to produce 12 mm hose and 30 mm hose.
1 kg.
1 kilogram.
Very good. For 12 mm hose and for 30 mm hose is what?
6 kg.
Fine. So this is what you use to divide your contribution per unit to get your contribution per limiting factor. So hope that is clear. Let's show it. Let us show it because we might not all be on the same page. Solution. You have two products. We want to determine our contribution per unit or per meter. So we have our selling price. For 12 mm hose is 10 naira. This is 25. And the variable cost is what? For 12 mm hose is 8. For 30 mm hose is 19. The difference will give you what? Okay, let me put this in brackets instead of writing less. So the results will give you what? Contribution per meter or per unit. And this will give you what? 2. And this will give you what? 6. The next is for you to compute what? Your contribution per limiting factor. And what do you need to do that? You need a unit of the limiting factor. And the unit of the limiting factor is tungsten wire. Tungsten wire per meter. And you need how many tungsten wire to produce 1 unit of 12 mm hose? You need 1 kg. And for this 30 mm hose, you need how many kg? 6. You need 6 kg. So once you divide, this is what will happen. It is 2 divided by 1 kg. The result will be equal to what? The result
2.
here is 2. Okay, let me bring it here. Equal to 2. Here, it will be 6 kg or 6 divided by 6 kg. The result will be what?
1.
So this is contribution per limiting factor. So what will be the next thing to do?
To rank
Ranking.
results.
So which is ranking first?
From highest.
12
12
mm.
mm.
12 mm.
And this is ranking what? Second.
Second.
So if you want to make a recommendation, recommend the most profitable short-time production plan for Amaco PLC. So if you want to make a recommendation, what will be the production plan? The production plan is to do what? Is to produce 12 mm, because you start with that first, because it's giving you what? The highest contribution per limiting factor. You can see in this case, contribution per meter, you can see it's 30 mm hose. But this is not our basis of decision. The base of our decision is what? Is the limiting factor, contribution per limiting factor. Because this will give us more in terms of the limited resources compared to 30 mm hose. So we start with the production of this. Then if we have more resources that can satisfy this, we produce this. But if no, we only concentrate on this, and that will be the production plan. Any question? All right, let's take it further. This is another question. Can somebody read?
Apex Limited is considering producing 3 products: good, better, and best. The information regarding these products are as follows. Selling price 60 naira for good, 80 naira for better, and 100 naira for best. Labor 2 naira per hour, 30 for good, 20 for better, and 60 for best. Materials at 1 naira per kg, 15 naira for good, 45 naira for 15 naira for good, 30 naira for better, and 20 for best. The contribution per unit 15 for better, for good, 30 for better, and 20 for best. Input per unit of products. Labor hours per unit 15 for good, 20 hours for better, and 30 hours for best. The maximum demand per unit per annum is 1,000 for good, 800 for better, and 600 for best. Required. What product mix would maximize the annual contribution, assuming that labor is restricted to 20,000 hours per annum?
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Now, the limiting factor in this question.
It's labor hour.
Labor hour.
Labor.
Very clear. Labor hours. Labor hours. But you can, even though it's labor hour, but for explanation purpose, you can decide to confirm. You can, yes, you can decide to do a test to really know if labor is actually a limiting factor. Now, you have demand per annum, maximum demand per annum for each of the products. Now, for you to produce 1 unit of good, how many hours do you need? For you to produce 1 unit of good, how many hours do you need? Look at the question very well.
15 hours.
Fine, 15 hours. See, it's labor hours per unit. Labor hours per unit. You need 15 hours to produce good. 1 unit of good. To produce better, how many hours do you need to produce 1 unit of better?
10 hours.
10 hours.
10 hours.
Fine. To produce best, how many hours do you need for 1 unit? 30.
30 hours.
Fine. Now, since you have a maximum demand of 1,000,
There will be plenty
produce-
bags in it. Maybe like 5 or so.
to produce 1,000 units of good, how many hours do you need? Hours do you need overall?
50.
You said
50.
it will be 15.
900.
It will be 15,000.
About
You need
15,000.
you
15
need
times
one-
1,000.
yes.
To be 15,000.
Yes. So to produce 800 units of better, how many hours do you need?
8,000.
8,000 hours.
80,000.
To produce 600 units of best, how many hours do you need?
18,000.
18,000 pounds.
30 times 18,000. Now, if you add the total hours together, what will you have?
Put that barrel back in that pot. Be plenty.
If you add the hours, that is the
That's
hours
right.
required.
That's 5,000.
No, check it again. 15 plus 8,000 plus 18,000.
41,000 hours.
So that is the total hours required. How many hours do you have available?
20,000.
What is the short for?
21,000 hours.
So 21,000. So this is a confirmation that labor hour is a limiting factor. We don't have sufficient hour to meet our demand. Therefore, labor is a limiting factor. Labor is a limiting factor.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, the calculation you calculated, we got 41,000.
I'm going
How
to
did you now do
I'm
and say
going,
that we did not have? Okay, sir.
I'm going to show it. I'm showing it now.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Showing it now.
Yes, limiting factor.
Now we have three products. Three products. We have good. We have better. We have what? We have best. Now, the annual demand for each of these products is what? Is in the question. Annual demand for good is
For good is
1,000.
1,000. Better
And
is
this
800. Best
and
is
this.
600.
Now, hours per unit to produce each of these products is what?
15 hours for good,
15,
10 hours for better, and 30 hours for best.
30 hours of this. Now, the total hours will be what? For good, 15 times
15,000. 15,000 for good, 15,000
for better, for best, and this will give us what? So when you add everything, total hours required, will give you what? This will give you what?
41,000 hours.
Total hours available is what?
20,000. 20,000 hours.
Total hours available is 20,000. So the difference between what is required and what is available will give you what?
Shortfall of 21,000 hours.
Give you a shortfall. It means that we don't have sufficient hours to meet our demand. So labor hour is a limiting factor. Labor hour is a limiting factor. Now, any question for this step? Now, what is the next step now? The next step, you put it down. The next step is what?
Determination of contribution per unit.
Contribution per unit. The next step, contribution per unit. contribution per unit for the three products. Contribution per unit for the three products. We have good, we have better, we have best. Now, to determine the contribution per unit for each product, let's go to the question. They've already solved that for us, isn't it? Selling price less variable cost. Labor and material, they are the variable cost, isn't it? So 60 minus 45 will give you what? 15 for good.
15.
And for better, 30. And for best is what? 20. Now, before we go ahead, let me explain something. Anytime you are solving performance management question, any question in ICANN even, and you see anything in brackets, be mindful of that thing. You see anything in parentheses like this, be mindful of it. Now, because why am I saying you should be mindful of it? In some questions, they will not give you labor hour per unit. You see, it was given to you free of charge here. Now, if you want to know, because when you go to the Pathfinder, you see a question like that. That time you now see students calling that they don't know how they get there, they arrive at this. I want you to know now so that you're not coming. Now, let's assume we are not giving these values here. We need to derive them ourselves. We are not giving 15, 10, 30. Once you see this value, this is 2 naira per hour, isn't it? How much do we spend overall on labor hours under good? It is what? 30.
Okay.
So if you want to know how many hours do we use to produce 1 unit, what will you do? It will be this value here, 30 divided by what? Amount you pay per hour. Do you understand? Will be this value here divided by the amount you pay per hour. It will tell you the number of hours used. So 30 divided by 2 naira per hour will tell you that you use 15 hours to produce 1 unit. Take notes. Take notes. Now, for better, overall, you incur 20 naira. How many hours do you use to produce 1 unit of better? It will be 20 divided by 2 naira per hour. You get 10. For best, how many hours do you use? You incur labor rates of 60 naira overall. But 1 hour, you incur 2 naira. So how many hours do you use? It will be 60 divided by 2. You have what? 30. This question I've given you free of charge. Some questions will not give it to you. You need to determine that. So when you are required to determine that, don't begin to wander around. You know, one of the first or step for you to compute contribution per limiting factor is for you to know a unit, the unit of that limiting factor. And this is the unit, what you need to produce 1 unit. So let's march on. They've given us contribution free of charge. You don't need to compute that again. It's just for us to write it. So contribution per unit. Contribution per unit. For good is what? 15. For better is what? 30. For best is what? 20. What is the next step?
Contribution per limiting factor.
What are we going to do? How are we going to derive that? Yes, how are we going to derive that?
Contribution per unit divided by the unit of limiting factor.
And what is that unit of limiting factor for good?
15.
Okay, fine. Hours per unit.
Yes.
So for good is 15. For better is 10. For best
10,
is
30.
30. So your contribution per limiting
So go and learn.
your contribution per limiting factor will now be what?
1
15 divided by 15.
divided by 15.
This will be what? 30 divided by what?
10.
And this will be what? 3. And this will be what? 20 divided by 30. This will be what?
0.6.
0.67.
So what will be the next thing now?
Ranking.
Ranking. So which will rank first?
Better.
Because it's having the highest contribution per limiting factor. This is first.
Yes.
And the second will be what?
Good.
And this will be the third. The essence of this ranking is for you to allocate the limited resources to the products that will give you the highest contribution per limiting factor. So now, how are you going to allocate the limited resources? The limited resources, the total you have is what? 20,000 hours per annum. How will the allocation be? Allocation of 20,000 labor hours. Allocation of 20,000 labor hours. So now, we have hours here. The total hours we have is what? Total hours is what? 20,000 hours.
20,000 hours.
Now, Beta is ranking first, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So how many hours do we need to produce Beta?
8,000 hours.
See it, 8,000 hours. So it means since it's ranking first, we need to give it the first priority. Yes. So the first priority is product Beta less the first rank product. First rank product. That is Beta. And the hours required for us to produce Beta is what? It's 8,000.
8,000.
Let me show it.
Hours.
Let me show it. That is 10,000. 10 hours multiplied by 800. 800 units. You need the hours of what? This 10 hours. Let me define it well. 10 hours. So once you do it, you need what? 8,000 hours. Since it's ranking first, you give it the total hours it required. So the balance will now be what? What do you have left?
12,000.
12,000 hours.
12,000 hours. The next rank product is what? Good.
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 How many hours do we need to produce? Good.
15,000 hours.
Do we have 15,000 hours?
No.
No.
What are we going to do? We make use of the 12,000 hours, right?
Yes.
We make use of the
Yes.
12,000 hours. Less second rank product. Second rank product. Less the second rank product. The question is, there is something here. Optimal mix. That is the best you can produce using 8,000 hours. The best you can produce using 8,000 hours is what? Please, you can mute yourself if your environment is noisy. Yes. So the best you can produce using 8,000 hours is 800 units. This is it. Because it's ranking first, will give it all it requires for us to meet up with the production. Now, for 12,000 units, 12,000 hours left, how many units of how many units of good can we produce with 12,000 hours? How many units? Please take note of this step. This step is also a key point you need to look out for, because when students start solving and they get to the last stage, they will not get confused. What am I going to do? This balance here, how many units of good can you produce with 12,000 hours? How are you going to know? You ask yourself, how many hours do I need to produce 1 unit? 1 unit of good. How many hours? Can you tell me, please? How many hours do I need to produce 1 unit of good?
15 hours.
15 hours. So for me to know how many units I can produce using 12,000 hours, what will I do? How many units can I produce using 12,000 hours? What will I do? It's a simple mathematics now. You need,
12,000
We
divided by
divide it
15.
by 12,000
yeah,
divided.
yes. The mathematics is this. Can put it, though I will erase it. It is 12,000 divided by what? 15. And you get what?
800.
8,000.
You get
800.
800.
800.
800. So take note. So the optimal mix at 12,000 hours, using 12,000 hours will be what? Will be 800 units also.
800.
800 units. But note this. The workings is the second rank product, which is good, will be 15 multiplied by 800 units. Will give you what? How many hours?
12,000.
12,000. So take note of this step. This is the allocation of 20,000 labor hours on the best product. So since we don't have more hours left, we won't consider the third product, which is best. We don't have sufficient resources, so we close the chapter. You understand? We close the chapter at that point. Let's look at another question. You solve this one for me. So somebody should read this question. You can read the question. Somebody should read.
Sausage makes two products, the mask and the sauce. Unit variable costs are as follows. For mash, direct material for mash is 1. For sauce is $2. Is 2. Direct labor at 3 naira per hour, 6 for mash and 3 for sauce. Variable overheads, 1 for mash and 1 for sauce. The total is 8 for mash and 7 for sauce. The sales price per unit is $8 per mash and $11 per source. Sorry. During July, the available direct labor is limited to 8,000 hours. Sales demand in July is expected to be as follows: mash 3,000 units, source 5,000 units. Required: determine the production budget that will maximize profit, assuming that fixed costs per month are $20,000 and that there is no opening inventory of finished goods or work in progress.
All right, thank you very much. So take a second look at the question again, and I need one or two persons to tell me what to do. Just feel free. Look at the question and just analyze. Assume this is what you are seeing in the exam. Based on what we've discussed now, what do you think you can come up with? Just settle down and look at it very well.
First of all, we will determine the limiting factor.
Okay, ma'am. And from the question, what is our limiting factor? No, let's finish. Let's analyze that.
The limiting factor is direct labor.
Direct labor is limiting factor.
Direct labor. Can we do a confirmation of that? Can we do a confirmation?
Sales demand 3,000.
Yes, we should be able to do it.
Source 4,000.
Can we do a confirmation of that?
8,000. Okay, 20,000 is required.
Based on the demand, how many hours do you need? And we know we have 8,000 hours available, but based on the demand of 3,000 units and 5,000 units, how many hours do you need?
Okay, 3,000 pounds.
So $2 per $2 per 3,000. That's the 6,000 units for the first one for March. For March. And for the second one,
6,000.
that is 5,000 because 3 hours are needed for one unit.
Plus 6,000.
Per 1 hour.
Okay. Yes, the
So-
total hour required is 21,000, while the available hour is 20,000. There's a shortage of 1,000.
Okay. Can I get another school of thoughts? Mr. Babajide, you were speaking, sir. Can I hear your school of thoughts now?
Okay, sir. So from this diagram, from this data here, with direct labor is $3 per hour, and then under March we have $6. So it is $6 divided by $3. That it means that we need 2 hours. We need 2 hours per unit. Then the 2 hours times 3,000 units. That's the 6,000 units for March.
6,000 hours.
Sorry, 6,000 hours for March. Therefore, for the source, it means that we need. So for the source, we need just 1 hour.
1 hour.
Yes, for the source, we need 1 hour.
Yes,
So that is 5,000. That is 5,000 units. 5,000 hours for source. 6,000 hours for the other one. So 11 hours in total.
Fine. So we have 8,000 hours available. What is the shortfall?
The shortfall is 3,000 hours.
1,000.
3,000 hours. That is the confirmation. Yes, in some question you might not need that, but the understanding is very important. Yes, the examiner can come in tricky way. Yes, that requires you to show this step. Yes, because by mere reading, you already see that the limiting factor is what is labor. Yes, but some questions, I know there is a question in the Pathfinder that requires you to do this step, to show this step. So that is why I'm very much concerned about the understanding of this. Yes. So let's show it before I go ahead to ask the next question. Let's show it because we might not all be on the same page. Yes. Let's show it. Let's show it. Let's show it. So step 1, solution. Solution. Step 1. We said confirmation. Confirmation of limiting factor. Confirmation of limiting factor. So we have two products. We have mash. We have sauce. Then let me come up with a total column. Now, labor hours per unit. I explained this the other time. Anytime you see anything in brackets, is a pointer. Labor hours per unit. Let's go back to the question to analyze that. See it. See this. $3 per hour. $6 here. See the measurement value on it, dollar. It shows that this is dollar. If this is not dollar, they will tell you direct labor hour per unit. It shows this is hour, but it is very clear that there is no specification to that. So direct labor in bracket $3 per hour. Overall, here you have 6. It shows that you incur $6 as the labor rate. How many hours do you use to produce 1 unit of mash? It will be 6 divided by what? $3 per hour. And you have the result of what? In your own book, you can write it as workings. Yes, as I'm saying it, you can put it so that when you start looking at it on your own, you know it is not manufactured from somewhere. So 6 divided by 3 will give you the number of hours required. For sauce, same approach. This is $3. Divide by $3, you have 1. So 1 hour is required to produce 1 unit of what? Of sauce. Hope that is clear. So you have it labor hours per unit. Let me just show it. 6 divided by 3 equal to what? 2 hours. And for sauce, it will be what? 3 divided by 3. You have it as what? 1 hour. 1 hour. So the next thing is the sales demand. The sales we have given to us in the question. The sales demand. For mesh, the unit is what? 3,000 units. For mesh, for sauce is what? 5,000 units. Now, based on this sales demand, how many hours do you need to produce 3,000 units of mesh? How many hours do you need? Labor hours needed. How many hours do you need? Let me look for somebody that's. You said?
1 5.
5.
6,000.
6,000.
1,000
6,000
hours.
labor hours. You need 2
6,000.
hours for 1 unit. When you are now producing
6,000.
3,000 units,
6,000.
fine. Let me be doing it, be writing it. 2 hours times 3,000 units. And you have it as what? Equal to what? 6,000 hours. Then for this, you need 1 hour to produce 1 unit. How many hours do you need overall? It will be what?
5,000.
1 hour multiplied by what? 5,000 units. So you have it as what? 5,000 hours. 5,000 hours. Overall, the labor hours needed will be what? 11,000 hours. From the question, the total labor hours available is what?
8,000.
Labor hours available is 8,000. 8,000 hours. So the shortfall will be what? 3,000 hours. Any question about this? Any question? Okay. In the absence of question, what is the next step?
Calculate contribution.
Contribution. Determination of contribution.
Contribution per unit.
Fine. Let's go back to the question. Looking at this question, somebody should analyze the way the first set of persons have analyzed. How are we going to get contribution per unit for mesh and source?
Sales minus variable cost.
Selling
Yes,
price per unit.
The selling price
Net
per unit is
variable
15.
cost. And selling price per unit for March is 14 naira.
Yes.
Variable cost
Remember,
for March is 8 naira. So contribution per unit for March should be 6 naira.
then for
Hello.
source. Yes,
Okay,
then for
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 source.
salt,
selling
for
price
it's
per
4
salt,
naira.
unit for source is 18 naira. While variable cost is 7 naira. Contribution per unit will be 4 naira.
Fine. Then let's now proceed. What will now be the contribution per limiting factor?
It will be
If your just help us, please.
the contribution divided by the hour.
Okay, it's the background that is noisy, sir. All right. Okay, speak on, speak on, speak on. Let's manage the situation. Yes, right on, sir. Right on.
Sorry, sir. I say it's going to be the contribution that is 6 naira divided by per hour that we computed.
Okay, fine, fine. All right. Let's show the steps. Let's show it. So step two. Step two. Identify the contribution and by each product. By each product. Contribution earned by each product. So we have it. We have two products. We have mesh. We have what? We have source. So we have the sales price. The sales price for mesh is what? 14. For source is 11. The variable costs. Overall variable costs per unit for each. The question, when you add everything, is 8 here. Add everything is 7 here. So we have it variable cost for mesh is 8. For source it's 7. So the unit variable, the unit contribution or contribution per unit will now be what? Let me put this in brackets since I'm not using less.
6 naira for match.
6 naira.
And 4 naira for sauce.
We have 6 here. We have 4 here. So what will now be our contribution per limiting factor? Contribution per limiting factor will be what? Contribution per limiting factor. Our labor hours per unit is what? Wait, for you to produce 1 unit of mesh, how many hours do you need?
2 hours.
2 hours.
So labor hours per unit 2 hours. For mesh, we need how many hours?
1 hour. 1 hour.
1 hour. So your contribution per limiting factor will now be what?
3 and 4.
Will now be, this will be 6 divided by 2. And you have what? $3. And this will be 4 divided by what? 1. You have $4. Any question? Any question?
No.
So what will be the next step now?
Ranking.
Ranking. So which is ranking first? The first is ranking first. And this is ranking what? Second. So what next?
Allocation of 8,000 labor hours.
Okay. Allocation of the available hour. 8,000 labor hours. 8,000 labor hours. So the hours total. The total is what? 8,000, right? 8,000.
Yeah.
The first rank product is what? Source. Source. So you can move yourself. I mean,
Okay, sir.
yes. So I've done that for you here. So allocation of hours to the first rank product. To the first rank product. The first rank product is what? Source. So how many hours do we need to produce source? How many
5,000
hours?
1,000 units.
5,000 hours.
5,000 hours. When you less 5,000 from 8,000, the balance will
3,000.
be,
3,000.
3,000.
you have balance to be what? 3,000. 3,000. The next product is what? Is mesh. Now, how many hours do you need to produce mesh? From our computation, let's see. Mesh, we need 6,000 hours, right?
6,000 hours.
So how many hours do we have as balance?
Yes. 3,000 hours.
What will happen here?
It's not going to be enough.
Yes. Then what will now happen?
So, what's that thing again?
We'll give
We divide
3,000.
3,000 by 2 hours.
Okay, we
We
divide
divide
3,000.
that 3,000 by 2. By 2.
By 2 hours, multiply by 3,000.
1,500.
Okay. So the optimal mix here for this product, how many units can we produce here for source? I think it's 5,000. The optimal, the best is 5,000. I'm mistaken. Yes. So now, at this point, we allocate the balance. Allocate 3,000 hours to mesh. To mesh. So for us to allocate 3,000 hours to mesh, how many hours do we need to produce 1 unit of mesh? How many hours? 2, right?
2 hours.
2 hours. So if you use 2 hours to produce mesh, 1 unit of mesh, and you have 3,000 hours, how many units can you produce? To be 3,000
1,500 units.
divided by 2. You have it as 1,500. So for you to exhaust this 3,000, what will you do? If you can produce
Multiply by 2.
2 times 1,500,
Sorry,
this will give you
1,500.
what?
Yeah.
This will give you what?
3,000. 3,000.
3,000. So the optimal mix for this will be what? Will be 1,500. Because you
1,500.
can use 3,000 to produce what? To produce 1,500. Produce 1,500. To produce 1,500. Any question?
So I don't understand this last allocation. Allocation of this 3,000.
Yes. So the balance we have left when you allocate the first one is what, sir?
Is 3,000.
So the next product you are supposed to produce is what?
Mesh.
Fine. How many hours do you need to produce 1 unit of mesh?
We have 2 hours there, yes.
2 hours. So if I should give you 3,000 hours to produce mesh, how many units can you come up with? If you use 2 hours to produce 1 unit, and overall you have 3,000 hours, you divide 3,000 hours by
2 hours.
it will give you the number of units that you can produce for mesh,
Yes, sir.
which is 1,500. So for you to exhaust this 3,000, you can only produce 1,500. You understand? So
yes, sir.
2 multiplied by 1,500 will give you what? 3,000. So your balance will be what? Will be nil. 0. It's 3,000 minus 3,000. So you have it as what? As 0. I don't know if that is clear, sir.
It's fine, sir. Thank you.
So the question, let's go back to the question. The question is tricky somehow. That's determine the production budget that will maximize profits. The production budget that will maximize profits, assuming that fixed costs per month are what? $20,000, and that there is no opening inventory of finished goods or work in progress. Now, for you to determine profit, you know, I explained something that there are different ways to compute contribution, right? So who can tell me what are the 2 ways to compute contribution? I need response. What are the 2 ways? Contribution. The 2 ways. Yes, number 1.
Selling price minus
Variable cost.
Minus variable cost.
Minus variable costs. The other one is what?
Profit plus fixed cost.
Fixed cost.
Fixed cost plus profit.
Plus profit.
Profit plus what?
Fixed cost.
Fixed cost.
Fixed cost. Very good. Very good. C is equal to this. C is equal to this. Now, let's go back to the question. I want you to see very well. Determine the production budget that will maximize profit. Profit. It means you are looking for what? What are you trying to determine? Profit, isn't it?
Profit.
Assuming
Yes.
that fixed cost amounts are what? $20,000. Fine. Now, in this equation, from what we are solving, can we locate our total contribution? We can do that. Since we have contribution per unit, isn't it?
Yes.
Total fixed cost. Can we locate it in the question?
Yes, sir.
Yes. The 20,000.
So if we can locate it in the question, I think it will be much more easier for us to determine our profit, right?
Yes.
Very good. Very good. So now the question will now be, what will be your total contribution based on the unit, based on mesh and source? So let me just write for source.
Contribution per unit.
Let me present this in the table. Let's see. Production budget that will maximize profits. Okay. Production budget that will maximize profits. So we have it this way. Now for source, the number of units is what we have is 5,000, right?
5,000, yes.
5,000. Number of units we have is 5,000. It's 5,000. That is what we can produce, right? For source, 5,000. 5,000. Now, your contribution per unit is what?
4 naira.
4. This is what we are concerned about at this point. That is, this is units. This is contribution. Contribution per unit. And your contribution per unit is what? 4 naira. Your total contribution will be what?
20,000.
20,000. For mesh, it will be what?
1,500.
The contribution per unit is what?
6 naira.
See it here, 6.
6 naira.
The total contribution?
It's 9,000.
9,000.
9,000. So your total contribution at this point
29,000.
9,000. So for you to get your profit, what will you do?
You add fixed cost.
We have to add fixed cost. We less fixed cost. Less fixed cost. Get profit.
Less fixed cost. The fixed cost is what?
20,000.
20,000.
Is in the question. So
Yes.
total contribution fixed cost. We give you what?
Give us profit.
We give you profit.
9,000.
Give you a profit of 9,000. This is what the question wants you to do. Any question? Hope it is interesting.
It's very interesting, but the exam
In the exam, once you practice, it will be interesting.
okay.
The secret about passing ICANN exams is your ability to solve questions and solve and solve and solve. Any angle they are coming from, you'll be able to deal with them. Once you just solve 1-2 questions and you hands up. All right, Madam Victoria.
Yes, sir. Well done, sir. Please, I want to ask.
Your network is breaking, man. We can't hear you, man. We can't hear you, man. Your network is breaking, man.
Can you please help me project that question, sir?
Okay, all right.
What's the question? Before I can ask that question. When we wanted to calculate the first example we did,
yes,
when we were calculating our contribution, when we got to labor hours, we use per unit.
Yes.
Hour per unit. But here, when we are calculating our contribution here, we just pick the total variable to be 8 and 7. Am I right? Overall, 8 and 7.
That is to determine your contribution.
To determine our contribution.
Per unit, yes.
Per unit. But the previous question, we determine the hours per unit before we determine our contribution. We use hours per unit for labor. But here, we didn't use hour per unit here. We just pick the variable to be 8 and 7.
No, man. There's a mix up somewhere.
Okay,
yes, this is how it works, man. Where is the question? This was the question we saw right before We move to that one, right?
Yes, sir.
So now, to get our contribution, in this case, they've already given us our contribution per unit direct.
Okay.
And I now explain that since labor is the limiting factor,
Yes, sir.
how many hours do you need to produce 1 unit of good? I explained that it is already given to us in the question, but where it is not given, it will be 30 divided by what? 2 naira per hour.
Okay.
So this result, this labor hour per unit, is what you need to determine your contribution per limiting factor.
Yes.
Contribution per limiting factor. See it, man. Your contribution per unit given to us in the question, hours per unit, see it, man. 15, 10. Then your contribution per limiting factor, this divided by this, you have 1. This divided by this, you have 3. This divided by this, you have the, and we round. So let's go back to this current question now. So in this current question, to get our contribution per unit, our selling price is what, man? 14 for mesh, 11 for source. Our variable cost in total, 1 plus 6 plus 1 is 8, 3 plus 3 plus 1 is 7. So selling price minus variable cost will give you contribution per unit. Contribution per unit. This is it here. Contribution per unit. So to determine our contribution per limiting factor, the limiting factor is labor hour. That is established. So in this question, we are not given the limiting factor per unit. So we need to determine that, unlike what we have in this example above. It was given to us clearly. But in this other question, it was not given to us. So I explained earlier on that once you see anything in brackets, take note of it. This is $3 per hour. This is $6. What this implies is that you incur $6 overall to produce 1 unit of mesh, and you are paying $3 for 1 hour. How many hours do you use to produce mesh? It will be 6 divided by $3 per hour. You have what? 2 hours. 2 hours per unit. For source, you incur overall $3. How much are we spending per hour? $3 per hour. What this implies is that 3 divided by 3 is 1. It means you use 1 hour to produce source. Where is it? Yes, this is it, man. 1 hour to produce source. So you need these hours now to determine your contribution per limiting factor, which is this. When you determine your contribution per unit, the labor hours per unit, 6 divided by 2, you have your contribution per limiting factor. 4 divided by 1, you have your contribution per limiting factor. I don't know if this answers your question. No?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well understood. Thank you, sir.
Right.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
you can help me buttress this area. Allocate 3,000 to MASH. The 3,000 we allocated to MASH. I want it to be explanatory, sir.
All right, sir. Sir, the total hours you have to allocate between mesh and source is how many hours?
8,000, sir.
Fine. Now, the first rank product based on our solution is what? The first rank product based on our solution is what? Source. This is its source. How many hours do you need to produce source? To produce source, yes, to produce the whole source that we have, 5,000 units of source. How many hours do you need? You need 1 hour to produce 1 unit, right? So 1
Yes,
hour
sir.
multiplied by 5,000 units, you need 5,000 hours, which is this. So
Okay,
when you
sir.
less 5,000 from the total hours, what do you have as balance?
Yeah. 3,000 hours, sir.
3,000 hours. Fine. Now, this 3,000 hours is what you need to produce the next rank product, which is what?
Okay.
Mash.
Yes.
But take note, for us to meet the whole demand for mesh from the question, for you to produce mesh, you need to produce 3,000 units. But you don't have sufficient hours to produce 3,000 units. Because if you are to produce these 3,000 units, you need how many hours? You need 6,000 hours, but you don't have it. You need to make do with what you have, which is what? 3,000. So these 3,000 hours, how many units of mesh can you produce from 3,000 hours? Before you can determine that, you must ask yourself, how many hours do I need to produce 1 unit of mesh? How many hours do I need to produce 1 unit of mesh? How many hours do we need, sir? 6 divided by 3. You need 2 hours. 2 hours. 2 hours. So if I have 3,000 hours and I need 2 hours to produce 1 unit of mesh, 3,000 hours divided by 2 hours, how many units will I produce? 1.5. 1.5. And that is how we exhaust these 3,000 units and we have a balance of 0. So the optimal mix, that is 3,000 divided by 2.15. Hope that is clear, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So what you do for it to be more clearer,
Yes, sir.
I'll beg you to solve it again. Solve it again. Solve this question 2 to 3 times with great understanding. Then you'll be very fine. All right, Mr. Babajide.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for your effort and everything, sir. So now I want to ask now, this format that we have used now, I like it, and it's so different from what I've seen so far in different materials, those common formats. So can we actually use this format in the exam too?
Very well, sir. That
Okay.
format that you use, I have different study material too. I know the format used in those books. Yes,
Okay.
the format is in row format. But I've
Yeah.
decided to use a column format, which is self-explanatory, and you will get your full marks, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes. So I have other. All right, Madam Victoria. You can speak, ma. You are muted.
No, I think I didn't. It's
Okay,
the
great.
previous one.
Okay, all right, it's fine. All right. Before we solve more complex question in our next class, I will forward the question we solve, a very robust question. I will still want you to go and play with some of these questions here. Let me see. I think there's still one more question. Yes, this is a question. You can screenshot it. This is a question. You can also make attempts. Yes. Let me see. Yes, this is the question I'm talking about. This question, Cobri, is an interesting question that it is mind-blowing, that I want us to solve in our next class. But as an assignment, yes, for now, you can just screenshot this and attempt. Then you can visit the question kit that most of you have obtained from me. You see some other questions likewise that are not that complex, because I would not want you to rush to complex one now so that you will not hate the topic. But in education, you move gradually. So I want you to solve this question as an assignment, and let me see the feedback. Yes. Then in our next class, which is on Saturday, we're going to solve this question. Then after solving this question, I'll now refer you to the question in the I can pass questions and some other questions. At that time, you should be able to solve them without any fear. So hope you've screenshot the question, the assignment question, which is this question. Yes. Screenshot it and see what you can do with it. And I'll appreciate your feedback. So have you screenshot, please? Though I'll forward the slide. I'll forward the slide. But it's good you screenshot so that you know you have it handy now. And so any question before we call it a day? All right. The absence of questions. I would like to go now.
Yes, sir. So the last assignment on CVP, you didn't forward it to the platform.
Okay. The last assignment on CVP. No, it's on the platform. I forwarded it with the question I saw in that
the slide.
No, in the class. Before I commence the class, I forwarded two items.
Okay.
So assignment